In a stark declaration of resilience, Chinese officials have responded forcefully to the recent tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, asserting that their economy is robust enough to withstand such pressures. During a press conference held on March 6, 2025 on the sidelines of China's National People's Congress, Commerce Minister Wang Wentao emphasized that there are no winners in a trade war, urging for dialogue rather than confrontation. This statement reflects an ongoing tension between the United States and China marked by escalating tariffs and retaliatory measures. Wang's remarks come in the wake of President Trump imposing tariffs of 25% on nearly all imports from Canada and Mexico, alongside a 10% tariff on Chinese goods. Trump's administration has justified these tariffs under the guise of addressing issues such as drug trafficking, specifically the fentanyl crisis plaguing the United States. However, Wang argued that attributing the U.S. opioid epidemic solely to China is misguided and will not resolve the problem. He stated blaming China for the U.S. fentanyl problem won't solve the problem, further advocating for mutual respect and cooperation in trade relations. China's response has been swift and multifaceted. Wang pointed out that China is a key trading partner for 140 countries and has free trade agreements with over 30 nations, suggesting that it has alternatives to the U.S. market. He also indicated that China is ready to sign more free trade agreements, reinforcing its commitment to global trade despite the ongoing tensions with the United States. In addition to external pressures, China's internal economic landscape is facing challenges, including a sluggish housing market and stagnant share prices dragging down growth rates. The National Development and Reform Commission's chairman Zhang Shanjie acknowledged that economic growth projections for 2025 are between 4.6% and 4.8%, below the government's target of approximately 5%. In response, the Chinese government is drafting a specialized plan of action aimed at boosting consumer spending and investment. Finance Minister Lan Fong promised increased government spending on social welfare and public health, emphasizing that every coin is well spent. The cascading effects of these tariffs have not only reverberated through China but have also significantly impacted U.S. markets. Following the announcement of the tariffs, global markets experienced a downturn with significant losses across major indices. Analysts have raised concerns about higher prices, supply chain disruptions, and a potential slowdown in economic growth. U.S. businesses, particularly in the automotive and retail sectors, are bracing for increased costs that they may have to pass on to consumers, potentially resulting in a further decline in consumer confidence. As retaliatory measures from Canada and Mexico are anticipated, including significant tariffs on U.S. goods, the situation continues to escalate. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has vowed to protect his country's economy, labeling Trump's tariffs as very dumb and asserting that a trade war would yield no winners. He has outlined plans for retaliatory tariffs worth $20.5 billion, with further measures expected if the U.S. does not back down. In this complex landscape, both the U.S. and China find themselves at a crossroads. China's willingness to engage in dialogue amid external pressures contrasts sharply with the aggressive stance taken by the Trump administration. As both nations navigate this tumultuous period, the potential for resolution remains uncertain, but the calls for negotiation highlight a crucial opportunity for de-escalation. Looking ahead, stakeholders in both countries will be closely monitoring the developments in trade policy, as the ramifications could set the tone for global economic relations in the years to come. As geopolitical tensions rise, particularly in the tech arena, China has unveiled a strategic response to the ongoing trade and technology standoff with the United States. During the annual two-sessions political meetings in Beijing, Chinese leadership laid out a multifaceted approach aimed at bolstering the nation's economic resilience and technological prowess. The two sessions, which convene thousands of delegates from across the country, serve as a significant platform for the ruling Communist Party to outline its policy direction. This year's gathering comes amid heightened trade tensions exacerbated by new tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. Premier Li Qiang, addressing the delegates, announced a modest 5% growth target for 2025. Despite the challenging external economic climate, The multilateral trading system is experiencing disruptions and tariff barriers continue to increasingly stated, highlighting the severity of the competition between the US and China as changes unseen in a century. In response to the escalating tariffs, China plans to implement additional tariffs of 10% to 15% on certain US imports, a retaliatory measure against the US government's own levies. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has adopted a defiant stance, asserting readiness to engage in a protracted trade conflict. If war is what the US wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end, the ministry declared, emphasizing a willingness to resist external pressures. However, analysts suggest that the impact of these tariffs may be less significant than anticipated. Chenggang Su from the Stanford Center on China's Economy and Institutions pointed out that the actual tariffs on mainland China are considerably lower than what was initially promised by Trump during his campaign. The tariffs, while damaging, may not compel Beijing to shift its long-term economic vision, which is focused on technological self-reliance and innovation. Central to China's response is a renewed emphasis on high-tech manufacturing, particularly in sectors like artificial intelligence, AI, green technology, and biotechnology. Premier Li's work report underscored the need to unleash the creativity of the digital economy and to vigorously develop intelligent vehicles, AI-enabled devices, and robotics. Analysts believe that the U.S. restrictions on Chinese access to advanced technologies, particularly semiconductors, pose a greater threat than tariff increases. China's long-standing initiative, Made in China 2025, aims to position the country as a global leader in high-tech manufacturing. Although references to this plan have diminished in recent years, the underlying goals remain evident in new policies advocating for extensive applications of AI and digital innovation. While the technology sector remains a focal point, domestic challenges persist. China is grappling with an economic slowdown characterized by weak consumer demand, a faltering real estate market, and rising unemployment. During the two sessions, discussions turned to stimulating domestic consumption, with the government announcing an increase in the deficit to GDP ratio and a boost in fiscal spending. However, experts like Antonia Mady from the Mercator Institute for China Studies caution that merely stimulating demand is insufficient without addressing deeper structural issues such as the low share of household income and the overall economy, adding complexity to the geopolitical landscape. The U.S. has also charged 12 Chinese nationals, including government officials and private hackers, in connection with a broad cybercrime campaign targeting dissidents and U.S. agencies. This indictment reflects a growing concern over China's cyber capabilities and the extent of state-sponsored hacking operations. The U.S. Department of Justice indicated that these activities are part of a larger trend of cyber mercenaries operating under the auspices of the Chinese government. In light of these developments, China's leadership is not only responding to immediate trade and technology tensions but is also focusing on long-term strategies to enhance its technological capabilities and sustain economic growth. As the global landscape continues to evolve, observers will be closely watching how these dynamics play out, particularly in the context of U.S.-China relations and the ongoing race for technological supremacy. The stakes are high. With both nations poised to drive their narratives in an increasingly interconnected world where technology plays a pivotal role in economic and geopolitical power. In an escalating trade conflict that has gripped global markets, China has responded firmly to the latest tariffs imposed by the United States, asserting its economic resilience while emphasizing that trade wars yield no victors. As tensions rise, Chinese officials are doubling down on their commitment to safeguard national interests even as they engage in dialogues to resolve ongoing disputes. During a press conference on March 6, 2025, on the sidelines of the National People's Congress in Beijing, Commerce Minister Wang Wentao made it clear that China would not cower in the face of U.S. economic pressure. Coercion and threats will not work on China, nor will they scare China. Our determination to defend our interests is unswerving, Wang stated, highlighting the futility of the current trade strategies employed by the Trump administration. He reiterated a call for dialogue, emphasizing that there are no winners in a trade war, a sentiment that reflects the deepening complexities of economic diplomacy between the two nations. The U.S. has implemented substantial tariffs on imports from China, citing various grievances including trade imbalances and claims surrounding the fentanyl crisis. Wang refuted these claims, arguing that blaming China for such issues would not lead to viable solutions. He assured that China's position as a key trading partner for approximately 140 countries provides it with sufficient leverage and options in the global market. Adding to this narrative, Zhang Shanjie, chairman of the National Development and Reform Commission, acknowledged the economic headwinds facing China, including a sluggish housing market and rising unemployment rates exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. He projected a growth forecast of around 4.6% to 4.8% for 2025, falling short of the government's target of approximately 5%. In response, Zhang indicated that the government is drafting a specialized plan aimed at stimulating consumer spending and investment as part of a broader strategy to bolster domestic demand. Finance Minister Lan Fowen further underscored the government's readiness to implement additional fiscal measures to support the economy. We have set aside sufficient reserve tools and policy space to cope with possible internal and external uncertainties, he stated, signaling a proactive approach to managing economic challenges. This stance aligns with Beijing's broader ambition to enhance consumer demand and foster technological innovation, identifying these areas as critical for achieving sustainable growth amidst fluctuating global dynamics. Moreover, Wang hinted at the possibility of more free trade agreements, reflecting China's commitment to diversifying its trade relationships and reducing reliance on the U.S. market. We do not put all our eggs in one basket, he remarked, an assertion that underscores Beijing's strategic pivot in the face of adversity. As China braces for the potential ramifications of prolonged trade tensions, the government is keen on ensuring that domestic markets remain robust. The focus on enhancing livelihoods through investments in education, social security, and public health is indicative of a comprehensive approach to economic management. In conclusion, the ongoing trade standoff between the U.S. and China poses significant challenges for both economies, with neither side emerging unscathed from tariffs and countermeasures. However, China's resolve to navigate these turbulent waters, backed by strategic economic planning and a willingness to engage in dialogue, suggests a proactive stance that may influence future trade negotiations. As the global economic landscape continues to evolve, the actions taken by both nations in the coming months will be pivotal in shaping the trajectory of international trade relations. As geopolitical tensions continue to escalate, China and the Philippines are at the forefront of a complex security landscape that has implications for regional and global stability. Recent statements from defense officials in both nations underscore the urgency of the situation, particularly concerning the South China Sea, a vital maritime corridor crucial for international trade. Philippine Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro recently articulated concerns over China's assertive military posture in the South China Sea, which he described as the greatest threat to national security for the Philippines. In an interview with the Associated Press, Teodoro indicated that any attempt by China to impose an Air Defense Identification Zone (ADIZ) or restrict flight freedoms would be met with coordinated responses from the Philippines and its allies, including the United States and Australia. The greatest external threat is Chinese aggression, Chinese expansionism, he stated, emphasizing the need for a united front among nations that value international law and maritime freedom. Teodoro's remarks come amid a series of confrontations between Chinese military aircraft and those of the Philippines, Australia, and the U.S. These incidents have raised alarms about the potential for miscalculations in the strategically important waters. The Philippines has committed to formulating contingency measures to address these provocations, although specifics were not disclosed. We have formulated contingency measures to respond or to have proper courses of action, he said, highlighting the seriousness with which the Philippine government views these developments. The backdrop to these tensions is China's ongoing military expansion, evidenced by the announcement of a 7.2% increase in defense spending for 2025, bringing the total to approximately $246 billion. Chinese officials have defended this budgetary growth as a necessary response to external security threats, asserting that their military capabilities must evolve to address increasing challenges. China's defense spending remains less than 2% of its GDP, a point highlighted by Chinese military experts in the context of global military expenditure trends. This increase, while substantial, is being framed within a narrative of defensive posture rather than aggression. The ramifications of these developments extend beyond the South China Sea. Teodoro noted that the potential for conflict over these waters could disrupt a key trade route critical to global supply chains. The Philippines' strategic partnerships with the US, Japan, and Australia could lead to a broader coalition against what many perceive as China's attempts to reshape international norms through military might. It is China's own behavior that is the best motive for like-minded countries to band together, Teodoro asserted, underscoring the growing consensus among nations that view China's actions as unacceptable. As the situation develops, the international community will be closely watching how these tensions play out in the South China Sea. The Philippines' commitment to countering Chinese assertiveness, coupled with China's significant military spending increase, points to a potential escalation in regional conflicts unless diplomatic solutions can be pursued. The coming months are likely to see intensified discussions around defense strategies and international alliances as countries navigate the complexities of maintaining stability in a rapidly changing geopolitical landscape. In a striking demonstration of its growing naval prowess, China has made headlines with the recent circumnavigation of Australia by a task force of its warships. This maneuver, which included 2 warships and a supply vessel, has raised eyebrows among Australian and New Zealand officials, marking a significant show of force in the Oceania region. The Chinese task force's activities were notably underscored when a commercial pilot in the Tasman Sea received an unexpected warning about live-fire drills taking place in international waters, prompting airlines to divert flights. The implications of this naval display extend beyond mere military posturing. As China solidifies its status as the world's largest navy, its actions are sparking debates about regional security and the balance of power in the Pacific. Analysts suggest that this aggressive show of force represents a shift in China's strategy, as it seeks to assert its influence in waters that were once considered distant from its sphere of control. The unprecedented circumnavigation of Australia is seen as a direct challenge to the traditional maritime dominance of Western powers in the region. Commenting on the situation, defense analysts have pointed out that such maneuvers could lead to heightened tensions in an already complex geopolitical landscape. The circumnavigation not only showcases China's capabilities but also signals its intent to challenge the status quo, prompting discussions in Australia about the adequacy of its defense posture in response to an increasingly assertive China. The timing of these naval exercises coincides with broader geopolitical shifts, particularly concerning China's relations with the West and its strategic partnerships. As the global community grapples with issues ranging from the war in Ukraine to trade tensions, China's military activities serve as a reminder of its ambitions and the potential for conflict in contested maritime territories. In the wake of these developments, regional actors are left to reconsider their security strategies and alliances. Australia and New Zealand, both of which have historical ties to Western powers, now find themselves at a crossroads, navigating the complexities of an assertive China and its implications for regional stability. As discussions continue regarding defense and diplomatic responses, the situation underscores the need for a nuanced understanding of power dynamics in the Indo-Pacific. Looking ahead, it is likely that China's naval activities will intensify as it seeks to solidify its influence in the region. This could lead to a recalibration of international relations in Oceania, with countries like Australia and New Zealand potentially seeking closer ties with allies to counterbalance China's growing assertiveness. Ultimately, As the geopolitical landscape evolves, the ramifications of China's naval maneuvers will resonate far beyond the waters of the Tasman Sea, shaping the future of security and diplomacy in the Indo-Pacific region.